Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to podcast 003. I can't believe we actually made it to number 3. This is unbelievable. Thank you all so much for if you're a listener out there listening. We appreciate all of the feedback we've received over the last couple of weeks from our podcast. And I'd like to say that we have a special chair set aside just for our listeners this time. So it's like you're not listening out there. You're listening like at the table. You're like in the round. So we thank you for being part of this. And we hope that you find some way to, I don't know, what am I looking for? What are the words I'm looking for, Matt?
I don't know, Chuck. I don't know where you're going. I'm just going to watch you struggle.
Connect?
Yeah. Ways that you can connect to the podcast.
Maybe
beyond
feel
just
valued and included.
Oh, yeah.
Perhaps.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of that was Dr. Stevenson that was in here. Thank you very much. Let's give a golf clap to...
Hello. Thank you.
She did mention the HR department. So as always, we start our podcast off with a word from the HR department. Let's hear from Kimball.
Thank you very much. It turns out that Dr. Stevenson didn't actually mention the HR department, but she did mention what the HR department mentioned in our pilot episode, which was Connectability's mission statement. Yes, of being valued, included, and empowered. What I would like to remind us as we enter into today's episode is that it is perfectly appropriate for you to tell your own story, but inappropriate to tell other people's story. We'll just leave it at that and save some mystery. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Kim Bell. So let's talk about the placards. I understand that we had quite a few listeners that listened this past week. And Lauren, let us know what placards are we sending out this week?
Okay, so I am 29 weeks ahead of schedule with our placard delivery. We've actually already delivered some in the past couple of days, and those went out to 8 people. So we are so excited to be able to offer our first 20 listeners an official placard and a surprise bonus gift that will be mailed or hand delivered to them. And placards are going out to these lucky listeners this week: Tim P., Shanna C., Marcia M., and a very special listener, AV Field Engineer, who actually gave us a review of the podcast. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
But it was 4 stars.
It was 4 stars, and we thought it was written by AI initially, but it was not. Not AI, AV.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Field Engineer. So
But we don't have an address for
we
you.
don't. So guess what?
And he says he's going to listen to 100.
He does. So
Podcast
he's going to be
100.
listening right now to know how he can get his, or she can get their placard. So if you would like a placard.
It's a mail.
We know this?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
That's all we know. But
Okay.
thank you for the review.
Thank you. If
And
you
your
would like a
feedback.
placard, if you are one of the first 20 listeners and you would like one emailed or mailed to you, you can email us at placard@craniumshorts.com.
Yeah, and actually you'll get a placard regardless of whether or not you're the first 20. It's just the first 20 are actually
bonus.
getting it in the snail mail.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what we call it? Am I still cool by calling it snail mail?
I think so.
You're not cool.
Just regular envelopes and such. Oh, that's so sad.
That was so sad.
So, yeah,
We're way
after
past
the
that,
first
Chuck.
20,
Way past cool.
you can email us, and then we will just attach that PDF right to that email.
Yeah, I'm so excited that we actually have an email address, and we actually have a website too that you can just go to craniumshorts.com. What are we talking about today?
We are going to be talking about jobs that we have had and been fired from.
From which we've been fired, right?
From whence we have been fired.
From whence. Yeah.
Some of us have never been fired from a job, so we really won't have much to say.
Some of us have
Others
fired
of us
people.
have fired people from jobs, and others of us have been fired from at least one job.
And it turns out that, as you said, some of us have not been fired from jobs, that there is a clear line of differentiation based on gender of individuals in the room as to who has been fired from a job and who is not.
Okay, let's just jump right into it then. Out of the 4 of us that are sitting around this circle and our friend that we always leave an open seat for. So if you're
The
listening,
Holy Spirit.
the Holy Spirit, yes.
I doubt he's been fired from a job.
Yeah, I don't think the Holy Spirit has been fired from a job, but if you're listening, then you are included in this conversation. And so just say yes or no when I ask this question. So have you been fired from a job before? On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Yes.
No.
Yes.
So that was no's from Kim and Lauren, and yeses from Chuck and Matt. And we didn't hear what you said, so if you could say it louder, person in seat number 5, that would be great.
Perfect. We give you an opportunity.
Oh,
I think I heard you.
surprising.
That was very surprising.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I don't want to just talk about what we have experienced as, well, Matt and I have experienced as being fired from the job, since Lauren and Kim have not been fired from the job. But did you know that 40% of people will lose a job at least once?
Wow.
Mm.
So a little less than half of the workforce sometime in their work career will lose their job. And 23% of the people will lose a job 3 or more times.
Wow.
Lose a job or get fired. I do feel like there's a clear difference in that.
Well, what this poll, which came from, the data came from
The
a
Bureau
company
of
called-
Labor Statistics.
Well, this one came from a Harris poll.
A Harris poll. Okay.
Yeah, and it
Harris?
says from Into and the Harris
He does
poll.
polls.
Yeah, he does polls.
Oh, well, I will say I have lost a job, but I haven't been
Okay.
fired.
So we are going to talk a little bit about the difference between losing the job
Mm-hmm.
and being fired from the job.
Couldn't find it anymore.
So in addition, oh my goodness.
That's kind of what happened,
Yeah,
actually.
this is what happened. Okay, well,
We'll get into that later.
Well, even though we're talking about that there was a kind of a low percentage of the workforce, like less than 50% will lose a job at least once, 73% of those people experience anxiety as a result from being laid off, fired, or furloughed. So this survey was taken, or this data came from May 29th of 2023. And so what I really started thinking about through all of this is that how just in the last year, how the workforce, where unemployment is. I mean, I don't want to get too much into politics and stuff about where a lot of that sits, but looking back further than a year is what I meant to say, is that back in 2020, how different that was, because what we experienced altogether, everybody, including those that are on the podcast, we experienced COVID together, the entire world. And the statistics that show that people got laid off or furloughed or fired from their job dramatically increased. It's pretty crazy. So I just want to give y'all a couple more statistics, because I feel like I'm becoming the statistic guys, but I think it's a great setup for the conversations that we have around this circle. 15.4 million Americans were laid off in 2022. That's 15.4 million people were laid off. Now, they don't say the difference between laid off and fired, so we don't know exactly which one that is, but that was a 62% decrease from 2020. Because in 2020, this is crazy. I'm going to show you this graph. The U.S. annual layoffs and discharges of people that fired. So in 2019, it was 29.9 million. And in 2020, it jumped up to 40.8 million people. Wow. So it's like this graphic that I'm showing to Lauren and Kim and Matt is this graphic of basically people during the pandemic that have been either laid off or furloughed or maybe fired for stuff like that. So just a couple more things. The percentage.
Wait. That graph looks a lot like a dunce cap.
It does look like,
you know, like the old school.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. If you think 21.9 million 1 year and then 40.8, that's almost double of what, of who got, either laid off or fired. So we've definitely dropped from them. We're at like 21.6 million layoffs that happened in 2017. I'm sorry, 15.4 million that happened in 2022. So we're definitely dropping those numbers quite a bit, which is pretty crazy. Getting fired isn't the end of your professional career. So 91% of executives who were fired ended up finding a good position that was better than their last.
Oh, interesting.
So, which is awesome. So I want to jump right into this. Matt, you said that you got fired before. What was the job you got fired from?
okay. I got fired, and my story is not nearly as good as Chuck's. Mine is pretty anticlimactic, but I worked for a place called Pet Goods Manufacturing, and they made like dog beds, like fancy, like spring mattress dog beds,
Oh, those are fancy.
dog bowls, etc. right here in Lumpkin County. And they decided to get into like pet store. So they opened up a pet store right there, right near our late friend Craig's warehouse, the old Ethan Allen building in Dahlonega. And I had worked at a pet store in high school, and so I helped them get that off the ground.
You were the herpetology expert.
I was very much into herpetology.
Mm.
Herptofauna, aka herptofauna, as in reptiles and amphibians.
Yeah.
I was
All
very
the
much
lizards and the snakes.
interested in that. Anyways, yeah, I helped them get the pet store started, but I was a full-time college student, and they were really asking more of like managerial duties from me, and I'd really ultimately just signed up to be a cashier, but had found myself like kind of quasi managing things, and they felt that I wasn't meeting the obligations that. But really, I felt like I had gone above and beyond a call of duty for a cashier, but I wasn't being compensated as a manager. But anyways, I was let go from that job, and a lot of people have trauma associated with being let go from a job. I think it's far enough in the rearview mirror that it's not traumatic for me to talk about at this point. Although at the time, it's pretty upsetting. So, but now I can look back and not have pain, but
You still pick up snakes and lizards and stuff.
I do, yeah. Like
it's nothing against the animals.
So yeah, the neighbor has a chicken house, and what we call in Appalachia a chicken snake, aka a black rat snake, often finds itself in there, and I'm often called to retrieve the critters and take them further away. So
Part of the relocation program.
yeah, I'm definitely
yeah.
relocating the reptiles.
He's team relocate, not
Yeah.
team
Yeah,
kill it.
yeah.
So I'm picturing you at this. What's the name of the pet department? What was the name of it?
Pet goods manufacturing.
Oh, So I'm imagining you like Jim Carrey, like standing with all the reptiles around you, like people walk in, but you're the cashier, and you're like having to like remove a lizard from your shoulder because it's like it's.
Yeah.
There was no removal of the lizard. He stayed perched.
Did he?
So here's a fair question. Does that store still exist, Matt?
It does not.
That's right, because they fired you.
Fired me. That's right. And they went downhill. And they got what was coming.
Yeah.
I'm here for you, Matt. Don't
Thank
worry,
you.
buddy.
I appreciate that.
Well, I had an interesting experience with. I'm not going to say the establishment, but it was an establishment we were talking about earlier. And when I walked in to ask if I would be able to play, I got fired before I even started. So I walked in as a musician, asked them if there was a place that I could play, and they were really interested and wanted to know if I had CDs or if I had any music that was already out there that they could listen to. And at the time, I did not. And I mentioned to them that I could get them something, and they were like, "That's great." We pulled out the calendar, we looked at some dates, and I then said, "I'll need about like 4 foot by 6 foot for me and my piano." And she goes, "Your what?" And I said, "My piano." And she goes, "You don't play guitar?" And I said, "No, I play keyboards." And she said, "I think we're booked until the fall." It was like,
Can you call that firing? I mean, that hurts, but
it did, but
is
I
it
mean,
being fired.
but I don't know.
You
Can it
didn't
be
land the
fired?
job.
I did
You were
not land the
definitely on
job.
the hook.
It was like the promise
Yeah.
of it. It was like I got fired from the promise.
The challenge.
Yeah.
The challenge of being a keyboardist in
Yeah.
And a
the
guitarist
Appalachian
world.
foothills.
Yeah. Crazy. All right. So I know that Matt has been asking me to share this story about my firing days. I've
So-
only
You're being fired days.
my being fired days. Yeah. I don't think I've been fired recently. At least I don't think I have.
They haven't notified you yet.
Yeah. Nobody's notified me that I'm being fired. Years ago, I had a job right out of the Olympics in 1996.
Wait, you were in the Olympics?
I was in the Olympics. Dressage.
Wow. I
Impressive.
pictured you as more of a track and field.
I was the horse.
I thought you rented places to stay during the
I
Olympics.
did rent places
Oh,
to
so
stay.
he's not an Olympic athlete.
No, I'm not an Olympic athlete. Not even close.
You know, if you can't be an athlete, be an athletic supporter.
And
I'd like to thank the movie Grease for that.
So after following the Olympics, I did work for a housing company that we housed people from all over the United States and beyond that came to Atlanta, Georgia for the Olympics. And following that, I needed a job, a full-time job, because the Olympics only come around like once every 100 years in your town. I don't know if they'll come back to Atlanta again.
not in our lifetime.
Not in our lifetime. Amazing experience, though. Shout out to Atlanta and the Olympic Committee. If you're listening to this, thank you. We're looking for sponsorships. Send us some of those What's It dolls. Do y'all remember those?
Oh, those were the worst. They look like
Mel, we're not going to get them if you say that. That was awesome.
Oh, good. They looked
love
like
those.
blue toothpaste. They were terrible.
Yes, listen, friends, if you haven't seen what it is,
What is
just
it?
go to Google and just type in What's It.
What
is it?
What is it?
I thought it was. Is that Izzy?
It was Izzy, but originally it was called What Is It?
Oh, really? I
Is-
didn't know
What's
that.
it? What is it?
What is he?
Yeah.
Oh,
So following the Olympics, I had a friend that was working for a pipe organ company that was local to the Atlanta area. And I said that I would be willing to go in and work for this pipe organ company. And my job was to travel for 42 weeks out of the year to places that were within the boundaries of Dothan, Alabama, north to Huntsville, over to Chattanooga, Tennessee, over to Savannah, Charleston, South Carolina, and then south to Savannah, over to Jacksonville, all the way over to Panama City, and then back up to Dothan, Alabama. So everything that's within basically the state of Georgia and a little bit in Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, and a little bit of Florida was my district. And I traveled with multiple coworkers to different churches or different universities that had pipe organs, and our job was to tune those. And that's a really interesting, almost a lost art in this world that we live in digital technology, because pipe organs themselves, we could have a whole conversation just about that fascination of those instruments and about the workings of them and just how they work. So pretty amazing. So my job was to sit on the organ bench. It's like a piano bench, but it sits in front of an organ. That's the reason they call it an organ bench and not a piano bench.
That makes
oh,
sense.
go figure.
Yeah. So
The more you know.
the more you mow. The more you mow, your grass will look better. So I would sit on the organ bench of these little places in Albany, Georgia, or Metter, Georgia, or I don't even
love
remember
that
the
you've
place in
picked like all
Tennessee.
the names that other people would say differently
Oh yeah,
if
probably.
they just read it.
yeah,
Right.
probably.
Right.
So I would sit at the organ bench, and my job was to hit a note on the organ, and then I was to turn a tuner, and then the person that was inside the organ booth would have a little hammer, and they were able to adjust the length of the organ pipes in order for them to sound sharp or flat. So basically tuning them.
Mhm.
So 42 weeks out of the year, I did this. We would leave on a Sunday night, and we would come back either Friday night or Saturday morning. So it was a
Wow.
commitment. It was a job that I traveled quite a bit. Well, in the meantime, I was still kind of developing my piano skills, and so I was working for churches part time as a piano player, both in a Methodist church and in a Catholic church. And I could sense that I was being pulled in one direction, but I had this full time job at the organ company. But I was in my early 20s, and that's not it is good work, but it's not the glamorous work that I was looking for as a 20-year-old, or 21-year-old. I wanted to be out there as a musician. I wanted to be playing, and I wanted to be, hanging with people that were doing the same thing that I was interested in. And
Wearing velvet shirts.
yeah, and wearing
Like
velvet
when I met
shirts
you.
and playing
Yeah.
in multiple types of bands. So this when I wasn't traveling, my job was to sit and solder cables. So we built pipe organ consoles, and it's not a challenging job. It's a boring job. As a matter of fact, Matt today just soldered a bunch of cables for his guitar rig.
That's right.
That you did a great job, but if you could imagine doing that as like a living,
No thanks.
it just kind of gets monotonous over time. So I was living the life of a 22-year-old, 23-year-old, staying up late at night, and then having to be at work, being responsible in the morning. And it was a job that I didn't have a lot of people that were around my age. So I get tired during the day. I mean, okay, I get tired within the first 5 minutes I was there. Let's be honest. I feel really bad about this, and I've thought about this often about how I do not want to recommend anybody that's listening to do this at your job. Okay, I'm just going to go on and say that. HR department, tell me if I'm in trouble with this, Kim, because
No, I think that was a good disclaimer. Go ahead.
okay. I remember getting to the job and dropping my sister Susan off at her job off of, she worked over a place called North Lake and worked at a credit union that was over there. And I would drop her off and then I would drive back towards this location of where this pipe organ company was. And I would already be yawning by the time I got up. I mean, I was
that
already
is like
tired.
a 20-minute drive at least in between those two places.
It was.
So, yeah, I mean, that's
We thought we were saving gas by me doing that, but now that I look at it, it was not very
ridiculous,
smart.
actually.
I think the fact that my sister didn't want to drive and she wanted me to drive in the Atlanta traffic to drop her off.
Yeah, you got hosed, man.
That hosed Timmy. And so I would, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm sharing this with y'all, but I would get to work and I would be falling asleep at my soldering station, and that's not a good thing. If you don't know what soldering is, it involves a very hot metal, hot solder, and a very large iron that has a very large tip on it. And, you know, it's not something you want to fall asleep holding. So I would excuse myself to the restroom. And when I say excuse, there really was nobody else in the warehouse. It was like myself and the organ builder who was working more woodworking. And then there was the administrative staff that was in a different part of the building. And I would go to the restroom in the morning. I was pretty regular. So I'm still am. And yes, thank you.
Pretty good for a non-coffee drinker.
Thank you.
It's impressive.
There you go.
Thank you.
Good job, Chuck.
Thank you.
That's when I send all those reels to you in the morning.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You can time it.
Yes.
So about the time you got up
Oh, my
to the
gosh.
bathroom, you said you excused yourself, but actually you told the story in a way that makes it clear that you got up and left your soldering station to go to the bathroom.
I did, but I'd put the soldering station where it needed to be. I made sure it was very nice and neat. And I would go to the restroom.
OSHA.
And since we were in a warehouse, the bathroom itself housed many items that were used in the warehouse. So it was like a washer and dryer, and it was like the cleaning supplies, and just a lot of
It's a big
stuff.
bathroom.
It was a big bathroom. And
A multi-purpose.
because we did a lot of staining of the organ wood, we would have to use a lot of cloths, and so they were dumped into a hamper that was inside inside the bathroom, and it was almost like I became an addict when it came to like having to use the restroom in the morning. It was like each time I would like go longer and longer because I was. Here's what happened.
This was before your cell phone was handy enough to take to the bathroom with
This
you,
was
too.
before.
Like you
the cell
probably
phone
still
was
had a
handy.
bag phone in your car.
I didn't even have a phone. I couldn't afford a phone at the time.
To like read
so-
the shampoo ingredients.
I know, right? I'm really curious about.
There wasn't a shower in there, which that would have been great if there was, but
Yeah,
there wasn't.
that's
So
always missing.
I'd walk into this bathroom and the door locked, but it was one of those that was like, you got a 50% chance if you locked it.
This is a key part of the story.
Sounds
It's
like
a key
it.
part of the story. So I realized
Key lock. Sorry.
after about 3 to 4 weeks of hanging in the bathroom longer and longer periods in the morning, I realized I was up to like 45 minutes that I would just disappear to the bathroom. Nobody would question it because there was nobody in the warehouse at the time. As long as I got my work done, I got my work done. Well, the hamper was like a 1970s weaved basket hamper with a padding on the top.
Mhm.
It sat about yay high, which when I say yay high, it's about 3.5 to 4 feet. Perfect height, like a desk
Right.
or something to put your head on. So I would go to the bathroom and I would sit on the only seat that was in there, and
The John.
Toilet seat.
and I would pull the hamper over and I would lay my head down on the hamper of that.
Are you actually pooping, or is this
No.
just
No.
pure nap time?
So I think that's a little, we might, I don't
We
want
talked about bowel regularity.
this-
but
I'm going to plead the fifth on that one. So
So it wasn't a stool, if you will.
Oh, that was good.
Where's the drum? Bum.
So I realized that probably about 3 or 4 weeks into this of me continuing going to the restroom like clockwork, 8:20 in the morning. I was in there until 9.
Dear God. Not too different from now, actually.
That I was worried about somebody coming in and like seeing me sleeping. So I had to play the part.
Okay.
So I would drop my drawers and I'd sit on the toilet and I'd fall asleep with my head on the hamper and sleep for like 40, 45 minutes.
Okay, I'm a little concerned because didn't you say that the hamper was full of cloth that had been used to stain? Are you just breathing in the fumes?
Yeah.
Is that why
Apparently
you were
he
sleeping?
was.
Were you
This explains a lot.
He was actually drugged, is what we're learning right now.
It just lulled me to sleep.
That's why it got longer and longer.
you weren't tired? Maybe you were just
You were high.
noxious fumes.
I think back to it, that could have been exactly what happened. I could have got fired because I failed a drug test and I had no idea.
Like, I swear.
Yeah, they're like, you have veneer in your.
I wasn't asleep. I was passed out.
Your drug
Yeah. By the way, your left
for veneer.
my left cheek was like shaded orange. I was like laying on one of the cloths. That would have been horrible.
So you said dropped your drawers. So you legit, were you sitting on the lid of the toilet or the toilet?
Oh, the lid. Like,
You're on the lid of the
What,
toilet.
your pants are down?
Wait,
yeah, I did.
What are they?
Wait, we're both like, so not just your pants.
Well, I didn't drop them all the way. It's just like I'd undone them and like had them to my thighs.
But wait, so your bare butt was sitting, is this correct? On the toilet seat?
Yes.
Not the seat, I mean the lid.
Yes.
Wait, what?
Ew.
Well, the thing is, I
All
wasn't.
this time,
Wait.
for literally over 20 years, I've thought your bare butt was on the toilet seat, not on the lid.
But wait,
I see you differently now.
my underwear wasn't completely pulled down. My pants.
Wait, what?
What I had staged in this moment. What I had staged in this moment.
I
in my
forgot
mind.
he was a thespian.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, tell us about the act that would unfold if someone were to enter the bathroom.
Et tu, Brute. Oh, my drawers. Oh.
So, pretend like I were to walk in. What would happen?
Well, my thought was
No, let's not play that out fully. HR.
I had thought it through enough. I had thought it
It
through.
was premeditated.
Yes, I had thought it through enough
Okay.
that I was like, if I stood up, I wouldn't be completely butt naked. That it would look like that I was pulling my pants up. But this gets worse. This gets worse.
No.
Because I had thought, like I hadn't thought about it until I was about
Crying.
a month into it. About a month into this, okay, that I realized that if I had stood up and act like I was pulling my pants, how do I explain the hamper? Because the hamper was literally pulled all the way up and was like I was straddling it because I was trying to sleep. Oh, folks, this is not the reason I got fired, by the way. This is just
What?
Is that related?
this is related just to my mindset with this job. It was like
Wait, so you
Cared that little.
yeah, so
How long did this half naked toilet seat
the sleep
sitting
pooping.
go on?
well, that story's only available
Slooping.
for our VIP customers that pay for the
Or sleeping?
Pepping? Peeping? Peeping.
I feel like I'm on the hot seat all of a sudden.
You've been on the hot seat for over 20 years. It sounds like.
Yes, I have.
Wow. Okay.
Wait, it was a heated seat?
No.
Yeah,
Well, after
when he was done after 40 minutes.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, but right, he wasn't on the seat. He was on the lid. He was sitting on the lid with his bottom
What
on the
made
lid.
you stop sitting on a toilet lid half naked?
Well, I never did. I mean, I did this up until the day I was fired.
You never did.
Well, I mean, I never stopped.
never
it.
stopped.
I never stopped. Yeah. So I never
Still
stopped.
doing it
It was
today.
going pretty well, it sounds
It
like.
was going
why
well.
stop?
I
Yeah,
had,
kept getting paid for it.
well, I considered it my break. So,
Yeah, every job deserves a break.
You're never mind.
Yeah. So here's how I got fired. Segue. I was working at the pipe organ company and a church at the same time. And the church was asking me to be present for Sundays and Wednesdays. And as I said earlier, my job was to travel 42 weeks out of the year. And I was to be gone on Sunday nights through Friday. And so I wasn't able to be there on Wednesdays. And I had told my boss this. I kept kind of backing out of things and saying I can't be part of this because I've got to work on Wednesdays. And I could tell that there was already some tension that was involved in this. And I had plans to go to the Isle of Palms. Y'all ever been there in South Carolina?
Yeah.
Kim, you been there?
Oh yeah.
Really beautiful place. And the plan was to go to South Carolina and hang out in Charleston and go to Isle of Palms over 4th of July weekend with some friends. And I had a feeling that I was going to be fired. Like, if you've ever been fired, or you look back on, if you've been fired and you look back on it, there's like signs that you could tell you're about to be fired. I mean, sometimes it's like they'll write you up, or I could just tell because I wasn't fulfilling my job. So part of it was that, and the other part was that I was really feeling like I was being pulled in another direction, and I knew that they needed help, and I didn't want to tell them no. That was the hardest part. So I left my keys on the counter of my office when I left to go that July 4th weekend. And when I came back home, this was in the mid 90s. And so we didn't have cell phones back then. We had answering machines. They were tape things that you could, people recorded it on. And, by the way, my answer machine went like this. You've reached Chuck, Bobuck, Banana, Nana, Fo, beep. And then you would leave your message. It was awesome.
I would expect nothing less.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
So I get home from this trip, and I had 3 messages on my answer machine. And the first one was my boss calling to tell me I was fired.
He left it as a message.
He left it on an answer machine, and he said, "Hey Chuck, just want to let you know we're grateful for the time that you put in at the company. It's just not working out. We're gonna have to let you go. Turn in your keys. Thank you. You don't give any notice. We're done. We're done." So part of me knew that was coming. And then the next message was, I think it was my mom, just wanted to know if I got back home okay. And then the very next message, so I got fired in the first message. My mom called, and then the third message was the church that I was working at offering me a full-time position.
Yay.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
That worked out.
So I was fired, but I was without a job for less than 45 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I picked up a full-time job and started working in the church ever since.
So going back to your statistic you read at the beginning,
Yeah. Yeah. So that
you
statistic
would
that
have
we actually
never
read
gotten
talked
that
about.
had you not been
Total game
fired.
changer.
Yeah. And
changer.
I look back
Yeah.
at that job, and there definitely were things that I did that didn't fulfill the position that I was hired for. And I think that's the reason a lot of people do lose their jobs. There are some other statistics that I pulled up. Y'all have any more questions about what I did on that job, by the way?
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay.
Does your current boss let you go to the bathroom for 45 minutes?
Okay. I need to tell you about this.
Yes, I do.
So the church that I work at, there's multiple levels, and there's multiple bathrooms on multiple levels. But the guy's bathroom on the top floor, stall number 1, had a putting green in it one time.
What?
Like, it was called a potty putter. And somebody had laid down a green.
At
and
your
as
current place of employment?
current place of employment,
Wow.
there was a potty putter that was down there, which encouraged you to spend a little bit. And there was a score card
Yeah.
that actually you were supposed to mark.
Huh.
Wow. So they're actually
Encouraging.
encouraging.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that
Full
amazing?
circle right there.
Wow.
Kim, you have a really interesting perspective because you haven't been fired from a job, but you have.
Fired other people from their job.
So you truly are HR, ladies and gentlemen.
I guess that was part of the role as a manager, and ultimately the first person that I had to fire was a very good friend of mine, somebody that in the job that I hung out with her outside of our work situation. I was her manager, and we were friends. And so we had enough casual conversations, not to mention a verbal warning, written warning, like went through the process of discipline.
It was justified.
It was justified, and she knew it. She could not get to work on time, and the company we worked for had really clear guidelines and policies. And so I really was left with no choice. And that was kind of the conversation that we had was, at this point in time, I have no choice but to let you go because you're incapable of getting to work on time. And then I had to hang out with her while she packed her belongings and had to walk her to the door and take her door card from her so that she couldn't get back in the building. And then I had to call her later on that night when we got home. The friend and me called her later, and we were still friends after that, but nothing like, when you work with someone day in, day out. It was so hard. I felt awful about it, but I also knew, and she knew, which was the good thing. Like, it didn't impact our friendship. It was a learning point for me about also having boundaries and friendships with people that I was the manager for, because I didn't want to encounter that again. That was awful. She was my friend. But everybody knew there was really no choice because she did it to herself. So,
do we know this person?
No.
Okay.
No, nobody you would have ever met. Was in many jobs ago. And then I've also, fired some young adults in other jobs that I've been in, and that's really hard. There's a lot of life lesson kind of stuff in those kind of situations. The coolest story about that, though, that I have was a situation where we actually had to let multiple people go on a leave after some discipline issues, or they made choices that were against contract that we had in our job environment. And actually gave everybody an opportunity to spend some time in thought. It feels like when you're a kid and you got sent to your room. It was like a longer version of that. And what have you learned? And an opportunity to extend grace in that and allow people an opportunity to express what they learned and come back and get at it. So that was really unique, but a way that I learned about how to provide structure in a workplace or discipline in a workplace that also allowed room to learn from your mistakes, that whole growth mindset thing that we like to talk about, and come back in and be a different person with some different goals. So I don't know. It was definitely a really hard thing to do because I love people. And yet I also realized in a job as a manager, part of what you have to do is enforce the rules. There have to be boundaries. And we know that in our relationships in general. So
did you say that you fired them and then they went through a discernment period and then you rehired them?
No, they went on a leave, I believe I said.
Oh, okay. So
disciplinary leave.
Oh, so you didn't fire them. You just sent them on leave and then they were able to come back.
They were in timeout.
More or less.
Got it.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. They had a chance, and I'm guessing maybe some or all turned it around and some didn't.
Absolutely.
That's got to be difficult to firing a friend.
Yeah.
Because there's that balance of, are you fulfilling your purpose as an employee? And you don't want that to mix. I had to fire a volunteer one time, which was extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
Which also feels like a contradiction in terms, like
Right.
being fired as a volunteer.
Well, I'm thankful. I want to give a shout out to anybody who's volunteered for anything. There's many organizations that are out there that need volunteers. I volunteered for things before. I think everybody who's hearing my voice has probably volunteered for something before, and the importance of that. And I don't take that lightly. Like, if somebody's going to volunteer in an organization that I'm part of and I'm in charge of overseeing that part of the job that has the volunteers, that's a hard thing. And it has to be pushed to a very edge of disaster, completely falling apart, unhealthy, in order for me to really invite someone to a different position than what they were in. So we called it being fired because that's what it felt like, but really it was more of a restructuring of volunteers is what I would probably call it now.
No, you fired her.
Okay, well, I did fire her. But
he tried to clean that up and make it look pretty.
I did.
Right?
Legit.
HR bow.
Here's what I had learned in that short amount of time, and I'm still learning how to be a better HR director, understand what HR is from my point of view. And I was told that you draw a 1 foot box of what your stance is and why you're doing things. So, for example, in this situation, I had a specific reason that this person did not need to be in this position. And I talked it over with colleagues, and I made sure that I was sound in my decision, and we didn't take it lightly. We documented everything. So even though it was a volunteer position, it was done in a very structured, very healthy way from an HR department. And that was new to me because as a musician, we don't get taught those things. So we learn how to play piano or play guitar, and then we sit in bands, and, we don't teach you finances or, accounting or human relations or any of that stuff. You don't learn any of that. So I learned within that 1 foot box, you're supposed to stand on the beliefs of why you're doing it, and you don't get pulled out of that box. And I did that. And we had a good reason. I had a good reason to doing what I did back then, but it still hurt. It was like one of those things that not only did I know that it hurt the person that was leaving, it hurt the organization that this was part of. It hurt me because that person was a friend of mine, and I lost that friendship. But in the long run, the organization became healthier because it wasn't an environment that was going south really quickly. I can't say going south because I live in the South. That's bad.
Further south.
Going further south. Yeah. It was heading to Florida. So
I think it was further south than that.
Hey, if you go south all the way, you end up going north.
Oh,
Well,
true.
unless you're a flat earther. Sorry if you're listening and you're a flat earther and I offended you. Not really. You're an idiot.
I really appreciate you keeping in mind that they might need to be valued, included, and empowered
That's right.
also.
Yeah. No, if you're a flat earther, please find another podcast. We don't want you listening.
The Flat Earth podcast.
Yeah. I bet there's one out there.
there probably is. Hashtag. Look it up.
Mm.
Well,
Look it
no
up.
matter what, firing someone or being fired is a really difficult thing to go through. And I hope none of us have to do that again, but we might in this life.
No, I'd like to say that all of y'all are hired for this podcast.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's so nice.
Yeah.
And since
Thank
we're
goodness.
married, getting fired has a different name.
Could be
Yeah,
that.
and actually, speaking of this podcast, I realized that Matt and I have been kind of the bill of like a lot of description, but I do think that Lauren and Kim have had a really strong presence in the last 2 podcasts that we have, and I feel like our voices would be less cautious if y'all weren't here.
Oh boy.
I feel like we would miss out on some opportunities. So I'm thankful that y'all are part of this. Matt and I kind of dreamed up this podcast many months ago, but it feels like it was many years ago about things
last year.
It was many years ago.
Many days ago.
Multiple.
Many multiple days ago.
So what do you think, Matt?
About what?
Can you be more specific about?
About what Chuck's saying?
Yeah, it is definitely true that y'all keep us in check.
They probably have a whole separate podcast.
They might. We'll never know about.
This is the courtesy podcast.
Yeah,
It's actually-
the other podcast is a little E in the corner,
Explicit.
like explicit.
Oh, I was like,
It's an uppercase E,
Little
but,
what?
Oh, yeah.
but it's small.
But it's a little
Small.
one.
The font
small
size.
white
a little capital
Somebody put
E.
Sheena Easton in the corner. Like, I
Nobody put Sheena in the corner.
was trying to figure out where we were going with that.
Ooh,
Why did you
Oh my
say
gosh, I
Sheena Easton, though?
Doesn't know.
It's little, he said little E, and I was
I
just
don't know who
thinking,
Sheena
that-
Easton is.
Lily.
You called her Lily. Oh, Lily?
Lily?
What?
Or little? Lil. Is it Lil like Lil?
Maybe.
I'm confused.
people would want to know.
Lily.
All right, listeners, here's your challenge this week. If you
Get
were
fired from your job.
and then
We need
tell
more
us-
material.
Do something.
Do something
tell us-
drastic.
Tell us about it.
Take a nap on the hamper of the bathroom of your workplace.
If
If
you-
anyone notices.
And tag it like, hashtag hamper nap or something like that. So I could see it because I would love that.
Remember, your pants have to be down.
Hashtag off duty.
Oh, no, she did not.
That's amazing.
I was thinking
Or on duty.
That's amazing.
on duty or off duty, both.
Mm.
Oh man.
Off
Okay.
/ on duty.
All right, listeners.
Party,
Here's your
party.
challenge. Here's your challenge. That actually, I guess it could be a challenge. If you are listening on Spotify, you can go to the description and you'll see a poll that's there, and it says, "Have you been fired from your job?" And I want you to either click yes or no, because I'm just curious as if there are other people out there that like me that have been, or like Matt, who have been fired from the job. As always, we thank you for joining us on this podcast. We certainly have a seat for you every single week. If you want to be a listener, all you got to do is just listen. Matt, any closing thoughts?
Pretty easy.
Turns out that's
Yeah.
the actual definition of being a listener.
Yep.
Yeah, be sure to give us a 5-star review, unlike AV Field Engineer, who only gave us a 4-star review. Give us a 5-star review. Although I appreciate his sentiment. He said so we could have something to work towards.
Yep.
Yeah.
And those other 4 or 5 stars came from my mom, and my mom actually created 3 other usernames. So they were all 4 from my mom, I think.
So,
Kim?
I don't think your mom has listened to our podcast yet, has she?
Oh gosh, yeah.
She has, and she has received
she got a placard.
She actually missed her medication one day because she was listening and was 44 minutes late from taking her medication because she was listening to this podcast.
Oh gosh.
Oh, it's my parents that haven't listened.
Oh, that's
to our
right, because
podcast.
of the hair.
Yeah. We really threw mom off with the hair in the first episode.
Yep. All right, any
I
closing-
realized that I haven't reviewed our podcast.
Oh, well,
5-star review, Matt.
No rating? There's no rating?
that's our homework.
Oh, I just rated it 5 stars.
Okay.
Excellent. Kim, closing thoughts on this? Okay, Lauren.
I'm just going to say, I'm wondering if our listeners are going to, if they're going to be in that 40%, or are we attracting the us part of the population that just keep working and do the right things
great
and don't need
things.
to get fired. I don't know.
I think you would have to do a lot to get fired. At least I would think that you would, but
From us.
we didn't jump into more of the statistics, but there were people that actually talked about being fired for no reason and that there was no written up stuff. And there's a whole list of stuff that one lady said that she got fired because she didn't restock the paper towels. I mean, it was like,
We call that downsizing.
yeah. So as always, we don't know when the next podcast will be coming out. Matt said that it would be whenever we actually want to do it. So that's the way we're going to stick with it. Thanks a lot, y'all, for joining us, and look forward to next time. Thanks for joining us on this podcast. If you like what you heard and would like to hear more, hit that like and subscribe button. Don't forget to share it with your friends.